Oscillators aren't the only means to generate sound in a modular environment. When pushed to the limit, a filter will start to sing, producing a signal that, once mangled further with ring modulation techniques, is the perfect basis for abstract percussive sequences. To add rhythmic unpredictability, the so-called ratcheting technique is a great method. But first things first, let's look at ways of pinging a filter into oscillation. Essentially, we will be using the filter as a sound source in this patch by exciting it on the brink of self-oscillation with a short pulse. To demonstrate this, let's patch the 8th-note clock output from the DAW sync into the audio inject of the first filter and connect this to the center row output jacks. A short pulse is heard that becomes more apparent when we set the emphasis to about 7. Resonance settings effectively determine the decay rate of the signal produced by the filter, so we need to experiment with the values to find just the right combination. Now that we have a signal, let's create a rhythmic pattern by driving the sequencer 8 with the 8th note output of the DAW sync module, and only switching on steps 1, 3, 4, 6 and 8. When we now connect the trig out into the audio inject of the filter, only those steps will trigger a sound. Next, we'll create a counter rhythm for more complexity. Instead of adding another sequencer, we patch the trig output into input A of the logic tool, and the 8th note output of the DAW sync into input B. The XOR output now fires a trigger whenever neither of the inputs are high, effectively creating a second rhythmic pattern. Let's hear this by patching the XOR output of the logic module into the second filter and setting the emphasis to about 7. Connect the 48 dB low pass out into the center row R output, and a second pattern emerges. We now add a ratcheting effect for further rhythmic complexity. We do so by patching the square LFO output into the 4-to-1 module and connecting the 8th note output of the DAW sync module into input 1. The 16th note output goes into input 4. Now, whenever the LFO signal is low, the first input is active, and when it's high, it switches to input 4. All we still need to do now is drive the sequencer with the output of the 4-to-1 module. Let's focus on the tonal aspect. Setting each of the active sequencer stages to a different CV value and sending this to the filters creates a tonal pattern. For further variations between the two filters, we connect the CV out to input A of the signal tool and connect the inverted signal to CV2 of the second filter. But we can take this even further by connecting each of the filter modules to a VCA and modulating their CV inputs with a sine oscillator at audio rate, effectively creating a ring modulator. To add variety, we connect the random output of the noise module to the input of the sample and hold module, and trigger this with the 16th note output of the DAW sync module. Now it's just a matter of finding the right combination of random output level and sine oscillator pitch. All that's left to go full Forbidden Planet is inserting the tube delay into the signal path. Adding a bit of drive helps to inject additional vintage sci-fi movie soundtrack flavor, and connecting the sawtooth LFO to the mix input of the delay maintains the rhythmic integrity of the patch. This patch configuration is a good example of a dialogue between the user and the machine, with a human defining a set of rules and a patch generating sound based on these parameters. I will see you again next time when we are going to look at methods for producing polyphonic material.